Now we're just going to go with the same process for before. Hands on heads, hands in the air for a question. If you're near the speakers at the front and you really want to ask a question, try move in the middle a little bit so your ears don't bleed, as I said before. All right. Kevin, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role on the team?
Yeah, for sure. Can you hear me okay?
Can everyone hear Kevin?
You guys can hear me?
Yep.
You can hear me? All right. I am the lead writer, lead story designer on Watch Dogs. I'm out from Montreal. I've been with the project pretty much from the beginning. We've been on this project for about it's been about 5 years putting this thing together. It's a new IP, new game, so it means we have to be big and bold to come up with new ideas, and then add on top of that next gen is coming along, and that just makes it that much harder, but also that much more exciting. So we're pretty thrilled to be here and finally show off what we got here, and hope you guys like what you see.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Chris, down the front, has a question.
Congratulations on the successful game.
Thank you.
My question is, where did the idea and concept come from Watch Dogs?
Where did the idea for Watch Dogs come from? So our core idea when we started this was we wanted to come up with, it started with the core idea of let's create an entire city that you can hack at will, that you can control at will, and that was the core idea. And out of that, it slowly grew into, well, how do you control a city? You control it by hacking the electronics. What would run it? Well, it would be run by CTOS, the Central Operating System. Well, who's this story about? It's about a guy named Aiden Pierce. So it slowly grew out of that, but the core idea was giving the players a city that they can control at will.
Isaac, your question, please.
So with Watch Dogs as a franchise, not just as a game, how do you plan to develop it? Like, will Aiden Pierce be in future installments, or will he kind of create a legacy for others to carry out?
So repeat that again?
Be a bit louder, please.
Right. So with Watch Dogs as a franchise, how do you plan to kind of...
Testing, there we go.
How do you plan to carry it out? Will Aiden Pierce return in future installments, or will you kind of have a legacy that others will carry out for him?
Right. So first I can say that from our perspective when we were creating Watch Dogs, we're focused on Watch Dogs. We want to make sure that we are making a game that is solid, has a good story, has a great gameplay, and put it out there and see how people respond. People love it, that's fantastic. I love the world of Watch Dogs. I love everything that's there. I love Aiden Pierce. But I don't think we can necessarily say that when we started creating this, we were looking ahead to this magical franchise. I'm sure some people were, some people do that in the company for sure, but as a core team, we're focused on the game. I know there's talks of making a movie. I've heard that. That's exciting. But beyond that, we're focused on the one game right now. So we'll have to wait and see what happens for the future of Aiden and Watch Dogs.
Question down the front from a prospective indie developer.
Coming into a new IP, how does that work? Like, with indie games, you can just have an idea and then start working on it. But with Ubisoft, what's their code for developing a new IP? Because with Assassin's Creed, it's there from the beginning. Like with Prince of Persia and all those games, that was when Ubisoft started. But all these years later, how can such a polished game come out when they've already got so much money coming in?
Right. So you're basically asking how do we approach it at Ubisoft when we bring a new IP? When we're starting a new IP? That's a good question. So, we're always looking at new ideas, right? And the company always sort of explores these different ideas and throws them out there, puts teams together to see what we can come up with. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we'll try something and realize, nah, it's not really working. With Watch Dogs, we knew early on that we had something, that there was something good here. And the powers that be at Ubisoft recognize that. And what's great about working at Ubisoft is they allow you the time that you need. They don't rush it. they saw that we were onto something, and they said, okay, we want to let you go, make it right. And they challenged us too. Are you sure that's the right way? Maybe this would be better. How about this? They didn't dictate what we had to do, but they were pushing us all the time. And I think that's what's great about that company. Working at Montreal is especially great because you're right, you've got Assassins there, you've got Far Cry 3 there, you've got all these great studios with all these great minds, and really, we learn from each other a lot. If you look at Watch Dogs, Aiden can climb, right? Well, that's stuff we learned from Assassins. You know, they showed us how to do that right. So that's I think what's helped Watch Dogs get to the stage it's at right now. They gave us the time, they gave us the room and the space to make the best game that we could. And I think that's why Ubisoft, Montreal especially, but Ubisoft in general, has a great shot at coming out with some more great IPs because they know how to nurture those.
That young man's gonna go far. Ben, you've got a question.
Yes, just on how does the story affect the gameplay in Watch Dogs, and how will moral choices affect the ultimate outcome of the game?
So the story in Watch Dogs is, you know, we were an open world game, and there's a choice there. Do we want to have a branching narrative, or do we want to stick with a strong core narrative? We decided early on we're going with a strong core narrative. We had one single story that we want to tell. I think the main reason for that is, well, there's a few reasons for that. One of them is, you know, our experience is often you come to the end of a game, it branches off to these options. If you're like me, you choose one option and then you go online to check out what the other options were. And we were like, well, you know, that's not really creating a strong story. Why don't we create a singular story that then players can talk about, and they're all on the same page talking about the same thing and debating what they think about that. Now you asked about moral choices. So that's something that works a little softer in the game, right? That's something that's more loose, I guess, in a way. We have what's called a reputation system in Watch Dogs. And how that works is if you're reckless in the game and you're driving over people and you're killing people left and right, you know, Aiden here's the vigilante, so you can decide what kind of vigilante you might want to be. Maybe you want to be the vigilante who takes down the crooks and then kills them right in the spot. Well, civilians are going to react to that. They're not just going to passively see, oh, he's dead. They're going to react and freak out, and you're going to get a reputation. So the media is going to start reporting on you, this kind of crazy vigilante who's terrorizing the city. And then if they see you, they're going to call the cops on you faster, you know? But if you make more smarter choices, if you're a little more cautious in that regard, you avoid the civilians, maybe you take out a crook but you don't kill him, then they're not going to call the cops so fast. So, you know, it's not a hard, it's the kind of thing that you can adjust through the game. It's not like you take a bad path and now you're stuck on the bad path. It really fluctuates the way you play. Another way, though, is, and this is the way this is where I like the moral choices best in the game. We have features called Profiler. You know, Profiler is where you can use your phone and scan any civilian anywhere in Chicago, and you pick up interesting facts about them: their salary, whether they're employed or unemployed, how many kids they may have. Just things that immediately give you a picture of what in past games has always been just a random NPC. Well, now suddenly they've got a personality, and you realize, okay, this is a real human being to an extent. So that's where I think the player's own moral choice comes into play. I'll give you an example of how that worked for me. When I was testing the game early on, I wanted to see how this profiler is working. I was playing through this level, and I came into a map where there was these guys trying to kill me. So I snuck up behind one of them. I had the profiler on. I snuck up behind, aimed my gun at him, and the profiler popped up and said he was a newlywed. And I was like, oh. You know, it made me kind of go, I don't know if I want to kill him. I did kill him. But I paused. You know, so that I think is the you know, that's just one example where I think it's how it does affect the way you play. You find that you're making choices because these NPCs are now real people.
Kevin, how long did you pause for?
not that long.
I thought so. My friend Kieran down the middle here has a question.
Hi, I got two questions. Are you going to add DLC, like more DLC instead of the pre-order DLC? And also, are you going to have other vehicles like helicopters and planes?
Okay, I heard two questions, right? You're asking about DLC and do we have helicopters and planes? All right. You mean to fly? Do you have helicopters and planes to fly?
Yes,
no, there are no helicopters and planes to fly in the game. You will have helicopters that you'll have to deal with. The police have helicopters, but you're going to have to avoid them, and they're pretty hardcore. They will, they get those spotlights on you. They're hard to avoid. DLC? Yes, we have DLC coming. That's about all I'm going to say right now. Let us get the first game out first. But yeah, you can expect DLC, for sure.
Question in the middle again from Stuart. Stuart, your question, please.
Hi. So you mentioned moral choices. With the multiplayer, will that affect the moral choices and your reputation when they not invade your world, but when they interact with your game?
Okay, yeah, I'm afraid. Can you repeat that? I didn't quite hear all that.
So with the multiplayer aspect where you can interfere with other people's games,
Yes.
does that interfere or interact with your reputation in your game?
Okay, right. So, yeah, we have a multiplayer aspect where a player can hack into your game. So you can be playing your game and suddenly another player can come into your game and try to basically drop a virus onto your system. It doesn't affect your game, it kind of affects your bragging rights though. So your question was, do those sorts of things affect like the reputation, right? That's a good question because yes, it can, right? So if you, let's say this hacker comes into your game, you see him on the street, pull out your gun, and you just start blasting away, driving over people, whatever it takes to reach this guy. Civilians are going to freak out over that. They're going to see that and be like, "Oh my God!" You know, they're kind of they wouldn't appreciate that for sure, and so that'll affect your reputation. Now, if you're hacking into somebody else's game, and how does that affect your reputation? That's a good question. I don't actually know. I would suspect it doesn't affect your reputation, but I'm not sure. That's a good question. I'll have to look into that. But I don't know about it, you going into such a game.
David, up the back has a question. David, what's your question?
So how hard is it for you guys to actually support all the different consoles and platforms that you're actually releasing on? And you're going to obviously be able to give a different experience on the Wii U. Can you tell us about like your experiences with those things?
Okay,
could you tell us about your experience about developing Watch Dogs for all the different platforms it's going to be released on, especially the Wii U?
Okay,
He's wondering about...
Guys, I apologize. The speakers are really bad here.
That's right. He's wondering about your experiences with the development of Watch Dogs on all the different platforms and Wii U.
Oh, okay. All right. So when we were developing the game, we wanted to make sure that everybody's getting the same experience cross-platform. So what we've got is we've got a core team that works on, you know, here's the main adventure, and we deal a lot. We have specialized departments that are like, okay, we're the ones who are making sure that the next gen version is optimized as much as possible. Now we're the ones who are the current gen, we're making sure that's optimized as much as possible. I myself don't have experience working specifically with each one, so I can't speak a lot to it. I know it's challenging. I know that. I know they've had a lot of challenges to make it work, and I know they've also had a lot of successes. So I think you guys are going to be pretty pleased with what you get. You get the same experience, you know, from going from current gen to next gen, same experience, and I think that's something that was very important to us. We wanted to make sure that, you know, there's no big differences between platforms.
Question from Michael up the back.
Hello. Looking forward to the game. Sorry.
Nice.
Yeah. My question is, how long did it take for the game to be developed?
Because from start to finish, the game was, I don't have the exact number, but it's roughly been about 5 years. So it's been a long time. We went from a team of, man, the where I think we were about 20 people, maybe something like that. And I think probably with Jonathan, the creative director, it started off with him and maybe 2 other guys. And that's grown from a studio in Montreal, a studio in Quebec City, a studio in Bucharest, Paris, and Newcastle. So 5 studios have worked on this project with Montreal as the lead. And so that's a lot of studios all working for one game.
We got a question in the middle here from Adam.
Hi.
Hey.
I've noticed that the CTOS is very comparable to the machine in person of interest. I was wondering how, when you start something so long ago, if new things come in the middle of your development, how does it affect your decisions?
I wouldn't say it necessarily affects decisions too much. We don't change things based on that. You know, if we feel like we've got a good idea, we're going to stick to our good idea. But you know, I think it really more shows the sign of the times, I guess, than anything else. You know, we're in a world now where our game started as something that felt kind of near future, and as we progress, it seems to become more and more very current. You know, it feels like the themes and the topics in Watch Dogs are very much a part of the world we live in right now. That's not something that we can plan for or we can anticipate, but it's great to, you know, it's nice for us to see because we felt like we were onto something that was topical, and it's nice to see that it kind of all comes together so nicely that people connect with it the way they do.
Question in the center from Michael.
Yes, you mentioned moral issues and choices. I can see that happening with the scanning of people and that sort of thing. But we live also in a gaming era of achievements and trophies, and people going, I need 1,000 headshots and that sort of stuff. Like, how do you work with that sort of thing when you're trying to develop ethical stories and challenging a person when they're going, I need to do this stat? You know, how do you work those two together?
You know, honestly, we really want to make sure that we have you know, our ideas that we want to put forward. We have our themes that we want to touch on, and we hope that players will connect with that. Maybe they'll consider the moral choices. But honestly, we also want to make sure that there's some players who just want to get in there. They want to hack the city. They want to see how far they can push the city. They want to see what stunts they can do. We want to make sure that we're making the game for those people too. You know, it's important that. So that was always, we didn't know when it was coming. You know, I wish Microsoft and Sony would call us and say, hey, it's coming now, but they don't. So we were just anticipating when it would be coming, and we had a feeling it was coming. So we knew, okay, what is next gen for us? Great graphics, sure, but we knew we wanted it to be something more. We wanted to push ourselves to come up with something new. So that for us became a city to control. And then out of that, we developed into the cell phone, the smartphone that you can use as the tool for your weapon.
We have a question in the center from Stephen. But firstly, Stephen, can you stand up? Doesn't everybody think Stephen looks beautiful today? Yeah, there we go. I told you. All right, your question.
Hi there.
Hey.
In recent years, Ubisoft has been quite proud of bow and arrows and crossbows in their games. Will Watch Dogs feature them?
Will Watch Dogs feature crossbows?
Yeah.
I'm afraid not. We should have crossbows, right?
That is disappointing. I don't think I'm going to get the game anymore, honestly. Hi, how's it going?
Hi. I was just wondering, because you mentioned taking some inspiration or like something you learned from like Assassin's Creed, like the climbing. But how did you go about sort of making Watch Dogs different in gameplay, sort of, and other things like story and
yeah. How do we make Watch Dogs different?
Sort of stand out and not sort of just be like, I guess, a modern day Assassin's Creed in a way, like. I don't know.
Yeah, I would never think of Watch Dogs as a modern day Assassin's Creed. Yeah. Okay. So I think that the big thing that for us, it comes down to the hacking, the controlling the city, right? So in our game, you've got yes, you've got climbing for sure. You've got driving. You've got you can move on foot. You can use weapons, and you can hack. And it's the way you combine those things, and I think it's Watch Dogs' strength. Aiden has this ability called focus. So we've all kind of seen a version of focus where everything kind of slows down and you can aim a little better. For us, it goes a step further than that, right? For Aiden, it means that focus means you can combine all those skills. So you can be driving, you use your focus ability, and now you can look around and look for opportunities while you're chasing somebody. You look ahead and go, okay, there's a bollard up ahead. I can hack that bollard and stop the guys coming towards me. And then I can look over here. These guys, I see a transformer. I can hack that transformer and make it explode. And then at the same time, I can pull my gun and shoot these guys. That, I think, is what's cool. The way to combine those things, and that's for you guys to figure out how you combine it. You know, we don't say this is the order that the recipe must happen. The city is there for players to figure out. I'm actually looking forward to that kind of stuff. When you guys start posting online the stuff you've done, the way you've hacked things, some of the crazy stuff that you've managed to pull off, that I think is what we're all kind of back at the studio. We're all particularly interested in to see. So that, I think, is what's the unique offering that's different from any other game that you'll see out there.
Question down the front.
Yeah, just wanted to ask how you interrelate the story in multiplayer, how it does it affect or not?
The story of multiplayer, no, the story doesn't cross over to multiplayer so much. I mean, it does in a very minor way in that, you know, we're keeping the fantasy of hacking, but there's no story that ties in like it does with the single player. Yeah.
We got a question.
We had a big game, lost the name.
Oh, sorry about that. I didn't.
No.
Hey, mate.
Hey.
I was just wondering, with you mentioned that 5 studios were working on the game. Are there any kind of different cultural contributions to the game? Is there anything different that each studio would contribute, or are they all kind of on the same page in terms of design scheme and controls and general kind of stuff?
Yeah, no, what ended up happening, I don't have the exact breakup of what everyone did, but for sure, we would, each studio would be dedicated to a certain area, certain either, whether it was an area of the city or a certain gameplay. Each studio would cover that. Montreal was the lead studio, so we set the tone for everything. We're the ones who said, okay, this is what we need, and then we reached out to these studios to say, hey, can you help us create this? You know, you can look at like Newcastle, those guys did Driver, right? So those guys know driving, right? So those sorts of things that we look for.
We've got a question from Joel here up the back. Joel.
Okay, upon completing the game Watch Dogs, what can I expect as a gamer to take away from it, from the experience?
You know what? When we talk about Watch Dogs and what and we do, we think about what we want players to do. Here's what really, the bottom line, what we want is we're not here to say technology is bad, technology is evil. I personally am all for technology. You know, we're not Luddites. The future's here. I want to embrace it. I think though, what we want players to do is I would love it if all the players kind of finish that game, put the controller down, reach for their cell phone and kind of go, whoa, okay. Everything that I saw in that game, everything that can be hacked in that game, what does that mean for my world here? The game of Watch Dogs and the world we live in now, they're really quite closely tied, closer than we actually could have expected when we first created this game. So I'm hoping that people at least start a dialogue. Mostly we want to be part of the dialogue of what's going on. Where do we think technology is going? What do we think of privacy? How far should we go with privacy? Do we care about privacy? Should we all live in caves? You know, we want to be part of that dialogue, and I think that Watch Dogs is a great way for people to think about it, to pause, and decide where they stand.
Okay, guys, we've got time for one more question. Your question, sir.
Okay. Hello.
Hey.
Well, the hacking element seems quite unique, and it seems like you're doing a good job at having solid foundations for everything, like movement and shooting and driving. and that's hopefully that does well. It's difficult to evaluate because when other things specialize in, say, shooting or driving, it's an interesting thing to compare to. For example, stealth. Like, what comes to mind is Assassin's Creed, Far Cry 3, and Splinter Cell. All of them have stealth mechanics. How do you refer to something that's like Splinter Cell that specializes in stealth?
So what was the question?
Yeah, what exactly was your question? Sorry.
How do you?
Are you wondering about like if we have stealth in the game and how does that work in the game?
How do you make sure that you have a good stealth system if, for example, another Ubisoft game, Splinter Cell?
Can I take over? Jacob, are you asking how are you addressing different aspects of the game when the foundations of the game are based on hacking? Is that correct?
I can tell you, you know what I can you know what, stealth, we certainly have stealth in Watch Dogs, right? Like you say, Ubisoft games do a lot of that sort of stuff. So we've got stealth in the game. What's cool about it, we wanted to make sure that anytime you approach a situation, it's your choice how you want to do it. I might like to go in guns blazing, you want to go in more stealth, right? Now, the stealth, you've even got choices there. You can go in stealth by movement, you know, avoiding the guys. Maybe you want to sneak up on one guy. You hack a gate. The gate opens, it distracts him. Now you can move past him. Or you can hack camera to camera. You could be outside the building and hack your way entirely, all through cameras, find what you want, never even step inside. So you've got a couple options there. So that's how we kind of combine stealth with your ability to hack. I think it's going to be I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun to go in more stealth. Like that's my more preferential way to do it.
Thank you so much, everybody. Put your hands together for lead writer Kevin Short, who certainly deserves it. We'll be conducting a signing over here now if you'd like to make your way over to the table. And we've also got a few t-shirts to throw into the corner. If you wanna stay, we're gonna do some throwing. It's gonna be fun.
Alright,
let's do this.
Those are for the ladies. Alright.
These ones are for the ladies, by the way.